think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us on this Wednesday. It's Hump Day. You've made it halfway. You've made it halfway through your week. A lot of people get to this day and they're like, oh no, it's Wednesday. But some people, you got those, remember the Camel commercials? Anybody want to guess what day it is? Anyway, happy Wednesday, everybody out there. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. I want to reiterate, a lot of people wondering what's going to happen on the left side of things. Turns out, the Democrats don't have great candidates. I mean, I know you're going to hear headlines today about how Elizabeth Warren had thousands of people turn out in Minnesota. Well, it's Minnesota, folks. It's Minnesota. Joe Biden's brain surgeon is defending Joe Biden's brain. Also, Joe Biden does not know what decade Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in. He said it happened in the late 70s. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. If you want to contribute to the conversation today, we would very much welcome it. We do have a great show for you. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, I'm going to be talking to a guy by the name of John O'Connor. John O'Connor is a former assistant U.S. attorney for Northern California, and he actually he's written a book called Postgate, and it has to do with how the Washington Post did not do a good job during the Watergate scandal of actually pursuing the evidence and getting to the bottom of it and getting to the truth. Very much like, he said, it actually started the advocacy journalism that we see today. I sat down with him yesterday and got this interview that we're going to listen to coming up at 6:33. It had a lot to do with Deep Throat and how the Post did not really protect Deep Throat the way they should have. And but anyway, it's really what I took away from the interview, and I'm really excited for you guys to listen to it, are the parallels between what's going on with the media and Russia and not wanting to cover the fact that this was an intelligence operation, which is apparently exactly what was going on with Watergate, that it was an intelligence operation as well. The White House, in the Watergate case, the White House was still, obviously had done something, wrong, but there were a lot more tributaries that actually led and would have exposed a much larger operation, according to him. And so I'm excited for you to hear the interview coming up at the bottom of the hour. Then the next hour, bottom of the next hour, we'll be talking with State Representative Rick Beck. It's always great to have him on. I'm going to talk about really just anything, flooding issues, levees, that sort of thing, as well as really anything else he wants to talk about. So telephone number 870-275-9799. Real quick rundown of a few headlines that we will be discussing today on the program. We have the legislative panel down at the Little Rock that kind of runs things when the full General Assembly doesn't have constitutional power. Most of the time, we tell you that this Arkansas Legislative Council is pretty much just a rubber stamp to do whatever the governor wants, and well, that's essentially what happened here as well. A panel backed $73.8 million for highway repairs. You'll have to excuse my skepticism. I'm not really so much concerned about the $73.8 million for highway repairs. Obviously, that has to be done in light of the flooding, but we also have a $5.7 million going from an emergency fund or a long-term reserve fund or whatever they want to call it now. That doesn't really, all it took was just the Legislative Council rubber stamping it. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Also, a little news out of Southeast Arkansas. Ben Gilmore, who currently works out of the office of Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, has announced his candidacy as a Republican for State Senate in District 26. As a Republican, going to be challenging Eddie Cheatham in that district. So that is interesting news. Also, this headline, a former Arkansas VA doctor's been charged in the deaths of 3 patients. Wait till you hear this story. The guy was such a good chemist, Joe, this VA doctor that killed 3 patients, through his malpractice. He was such a good he was a pathologist that he was getting drunk off of drugs that are lethal, but in the right amount of dosage can get you drunk, but then it won't register on the tests that doctors have to take to make sure they're straight and sober. Really, like kind of almost like a supervillain origin story, almost. We got 2 stories on that, one from Doug Thompson, and both of them are from Doug Thompson, actually. And then casinos. There's a very interesting article a couple of days ago about the casino going in Jefferson County in Pine Bluff. And some quotes where you have the guy who's representing the Quapaw tribe that says, you know what, we wanted to do this by the book because I don't want to be talking and explaining to some U.S. attorney why I had to cut a check here or there. We're just going to put a casino in and we're not going to pay anybody off. And they have to reiterate that like a lot. Like, hey, we're not paying anybody off here. Hey, just so you know, we're not paying anybody off. I thought to myself, well, you don't really hear that coming from the Pope County situation. It's like almost like it's assumed that there is going to be a quid pro quo. Anyway, so we'll have all those stories and more coming up on the program. Now, I want to talk real quick. I think on the international front, it looks like that the president is actually serious about purchasing Greenland. Oh, and by the way, I think I misspoke yesterday when I said I thought we had already owned Greenland because of the Mission Impossible movie. Joe, remember that? I think the actual quote was, and this dawned on me yesterday, I was on the couch, and I was watching some television with my daughter. I was on the couch, and I was like, I think I got that quote wrong this morning. I don't think he said, I want him manning a tower in Greenland by the end of the day. I think he said, I want him manning a tower in Alaska by the end of the day. And so then I was racking my brain. Well, why was it Greenland? I know there's some movie somewhere, and you know what it is? And it's one of Steve Martin's it's a movie he's not very proud that he made. It's called Sergeant Bilko, and that is the one where they send Phil Hartman to Greenland, and that's where it came from, Greenland. I'm just setting the record straight. Trump seems to be serious about purchasing Greenland. He tweeted this. Let's see here. No, we want the first tweet. Can you throw these up on the screen? Denmark is a very special country with incredible people, but based on Prime Minister's Mette Frederiksen, his comments that she would have no interest in discussing the purchase of Greenland, I will be postponing our meeting scheduled in 2 weeks for another time. The Prime Minister was able to save a great deal of expense and effort for both the United States and Denmark by being so direct. I thank her for that and look forward to rescheduling sometime in the future. Wow. So the president canceling his trip to Denmark, and he's saying here, like he was serious. He wanted to have a legitimate conversation about purchasing New Asgard. I'm sorry, Greenland. Go look at the photos. For those of you that didn't see the last Avengers movie, I mean, sort of a spoiler. Telephone number 870-275-9799. On another note, we have, I think, a clearer picture of why the president what was this, a couple weeks ago when he started attacking Tlaib and the squad and, Remember the Senderback comment? Well, that was the crowd. That wasn't him. But you know that. Remember when the media was all outraged? Oh, by the way, the New York Times is now, there are now reports and there's admissions that they had geared their entire newsroom for Trump Russia. And now that there is no Trump Russia collusion, the current head of the Democrat-led House Intel Committee, Adam Schiff, said he had incontrovertible proof that Trump colluded with the Russians. Of course, that's not true. There's nothing there. So the New York Times is now shifting their newsroom to just be about race, all the time race, and they want everyone to think Trump's a racist, and they want everyone to think, well, if you support him, then you are a racist too. This is now the new norm, but I think we're now beginning to see a clear strategy as to why the president was targeting the squad, or the jihad squad, if you will, or the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. The reason he was targeting them, I think, is because of what he has recently said about about Jews who are voting for Democrats. He has drawn them out. He has drawn their anti-Semitic statements out. He has drawn that the Democrat Party establishment is willing to tolerate these anti-Semitic statements. I mean, say what you want to. If there's a Republican who comes out and says something anti-Semitic, the Republican Party, it doesn't happen often, by the way, the Republican Party takes action on that, and they ostracize, they isolate that person. They say, this is not who we are, this is not who we stand for. I think now, once again, we see why the president did what he did. The long game was, I'm now going to be direct, and I'm going to start calling out, people who are Jews that continue to vote for Democrats. Why are you doing that when the Democrat Party is putting up with anti-Semitism? It's like a light bulb went off this morning when I was reading these stories. This headline from Breitbart.com: Donald Trump, Jews voting Democrats show total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty. The liberal media is trying to spin that, saying that's disloyal to the country of the United States. So he's saying, disloyalty to Israel, or to the plight of the historical plight of the Jewish people. That's what he's saying here. Look at this. This is Charles Sparing. President Trump criticized Democrats on Tuesday after Ilhan Omar suggested that the United States should cut aid to Israel after officials blocked her and Representative Rashida Tlaib from visiting the country. Trump indicated that the suggestion was ridiculous. Quote, 5 years ago, the concept of even talking about this, cutting off aid to Israel because of 2 people that hate Israel and hate Jewish people, I can't believe we're even having this conversation. The president commented to reporters that about Tlaib in the Oval Office, speaking during a visit with Romanian president. He condemned Democrats. Quote, listen to this, I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty. Disloyalty to fellow Jews, not America, but the media, of course, is trying to spin it. Joel Pollak, go to this next story. Joel Pollak: Trump just told liberal Jews what they've been telling conservative Jews for years about disloyalty. And he writes that conservatives are often puzzled about how the majority of Jews can still vote Democrats, or vote Democrat, even though the party has become so anti-Israel. You see what the president is doing here? He is, it's almost kind of like a soft reversal of how the Democrats look at, classes and class warfare. I mean, the president's approval with Hispanics, the amount of votes that he gets from Hispanics, the projected increase in African American votes that he's supposed to get, combined with possibly an increase in the Jewish community as well. You talk about a coalition. The Democrats want to talk about diversity. We may just be seeing that form right here, and the president using his bully pulpit to highlight some vast inconsistencies that are not supposed to be talked about. But it's the Democrats that have brought us to this point, because they won't denounce anti-Semitism because they're afraid of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Joe Pollak writing that Christian conservatives Christian conservatives often ask him politely why Jews are liberal. Jewish conservatives are less restrained and often express outright frustration. For most Jewish conservatives, the question is as much about pain as politics. Each of us bears the scars of family dinners gone wrong, of angry emails from relatives who call us disloyal Jews and even anti-Semites because they watch CNN or believe their liberal rabbi or follow the trash the New York Times prints about the president. The first Jewish Zaidi, I don't know, forgive me, I don't know Hebrew, in the White House, the best friend the Jewish state has ever had. So when President Trump criticized Omar and Tlaib for their hostility toward Israel and asked how Democrats could consider cutting aid to Israel because of two people that hate Israel and hate Jewish people, most Jewish conservatives knew exactly where he was coming from, even if we may not have chosen those words. Anyway, I think this is interesting. And yes, I'm one of those people, as somebody that reads the headlines, day in, day out. I kind of think this has been one broad strategy. What do you think? Right? One broad strategy to bring up the fact that there are a lot of Jewish people in America that are continuing to vote for Democrats, but the Democrat Party won't denounce anti-Semitism, because of essentially three people. What do you think? Let me know. Sound off. Facebook.com/Conduit News. We also are up on YouTube as well. So we've got a great show for you coming up. Again, John O'Connor, also a lot of stories to get to. We're going to do a countdown. How many days until October 1st? You know what happens on October 1st here in Arkansas? Your gas tax goes up thanks to the Arkansas General Assembly a couple of months ago. Yeah, they voted to raise your gas taxes. And, of course, all the tax increases come now. And the tax cuts, we hope, come. As long as future legislators go along with them, we hope they come later. $70 million tax increase on the people of Arkansas in the first fiscal year, thanks to the 92nd General Assembly. We are going to take a break. Back in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org. All last week we were talking about China, the trade war. We did a lot of this on Friday with Congressman Rick Crawford, who is with us. Also how that relates to Hong Kong. And we finally have a few headlines here. Here's one. Trump ties trade deal to China action in Hong Kong, suggests meeting. This is exactly what I was saying last week when we had all of those articles saying that Trump was bluffing. Trump, didn't have the guts to go through with, putting the tariffs on, and the media was just very lazy. I felt like it's like these two things, the Hong Kong situation and the tariffs, are not mutually exclusive because, the president seems to look at things in the totality of trying to get what he wants. Here to talk more about this, we've got the author of Middle Class Millionaire, Surprisingly Simple Strategies to Grow and Enjoy Your Wealth. Clark Kendall is with us, and you can get the book at Amazon.com. Clark, how are you, sir?
Great. It's an honor to be on your show.
Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, so it's hot. Now, I actually consider Arkansas, the weather here is, I love the weather in Arkansas most of the time. I like 4 seasons, I guess is what I would say. I like the idea that, there is, definitely a summer, fall, winter, and a spring. I think summer, do what? Yeah. I think some of the, I think most of the summer has been okay up until really the last 4 weeks or so. It just all of a sudden got ridiculously hot outside, and so there's the heat advisory. So be careful out there. If you got to go outside, drink lots of water. You take one step outside and you're just instantly dripping in sweat. At least I am. I feel like I'm hot all the time. Now, there's a federal energy program that's suggesting that we all keep our thermostats set at 78 degrees during this heat wave to save energy. They even want you to have it at 82 degrees while you're sleeping. This is just wanted to just feel the outrage. This is a local Fox story out of a Los Angeles affiliate. To keep your home cool with central air conditioning while also optimizing energy efficiency and therefore cost, keep the temperature at 78 degrees. The suggestion comes from Energy Star, a federal program managed jointly by the Department of Energy and EPA that provides information to consumers about energy efficiency that not only save consumers money but also improve air quality and protect the environment. All right, so this is just another example of how absolutely useless. This is a waste, right? Is anyone actually doing this? How many people actually do this? How many people are willing to sweat? Now, maybe some are. Maybe some people may be like, oh, okay, the government said, recommended to do this. I need to go do this. Some people may be doing it just out of saving money already. I would imagine they don't even need a government program to tell them to do that. If you're really, pinching pennies, you're on a budget, you can't afford to have that, thermos. You're already doing this, right? Because of a financial incentive. But what a useless program this is. Like, maybe they do other things, but recommending that people, do this, I just think it's ridiculous, right? Is anyone actually going to put their thermostat on 82 degrees when they go to bed at night? Is anyone in the state of Arkansas? Did any of you out there do that? Maybe what, 1 or 2, maybe. It's just a complete waste. It's a complete waste. Nobody's going to do this. Nobody lives like this, right? It's such a ridiculous expectation. And what I think. I also think, it's a very much kind of reminds me of like a Jimmy Carter type attitude towards the country, a period of malaise, that sort of thing. Telling gas lines, gas rationing. Oh, by the way, keep your thermostat on 82 degrees as well. What is this? Is this Soviet Russia where we can't keep the lights on, where electricity's not exactly. Now, granted, I know our power grids and stuff are very vulnerable, but come on, this is the United States of America. If you want to keep your thermostat on 72 degrees, you go right ahead. This is America. We'll be back in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding.
Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So what do you think about everything that's going on, with the president last week in trade, also with Hong Kong? They're waving the American flag. They want their freedom.
Yes, I agree. Well, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly with Larry Kudlow. It is the best for everybody worldwide to specialize and not to have trade tariffs. But when China is stealing our intellectual property time and time again, you got to throw up the flag and say, you got to go to war. We are at a trade war. I share with people, one of my clients owns a company that manufactures and distributes and sells camera stands. And he has a domestic patent on it. He has an international patent. But time and time again, he's competing against knockoffs coming out of China. And there's really nothing he can do to fight these knockoffs.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Say welcome back to the program. We appreciate it. We got a special guest with us on the line. I want to introduce you to the former assistant U.S. attorney in Northern California. His name is John O'Connor. John, how are you, sir?
Just fine. Great to be on your show.
Absolutely, sir. I appreciate you appreciate you having the time this morning. We have I've got this book of yours. Now I see it here on Amazon. It's due out on November the 5th of this year. It's called Postgate: How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. What made you want to write this book, sir?
Well, actually, I didn't start out trying to write it. Part of what I do in the book is it's half a memoir, and I talk about my dealings with the Washington Post and trying to do my job as a lawyer and sort of the fellow who is the spokesman for Mark Felt, a.k.a. Deep Throat. And I promised the family that I would tell his story for history, and along the way sort of got obstructed, as I talk about in the book. And the long and short of it is I stumbled into it, Paul. I stumbled into this and was very surprised when I found what I found. Let me put it that way.
Really? So,
Yes.
Normally, you think about this idea of protecting sources is something that's very sacred in journalism, and that wasn't the case?
Well, think about this, Paul. One of the fellows who sort of made source protection the golden rule of journalism was, of course, Bob Woodward, through his talk about Deep Throat. Everybody thought how wonderful he's protecting Deep Throat. But if we think about it for a second, probably 1 billion people know or quickly learned that there was a major source, and there was a description of him. And I was able to piece together by 1976 or so who the source was. I could figure it out, and other people could if they thought about it a little bit. So was that really protecting a source? That's my first issue. And here's a fellow, and I think Woodward told everybody he was going to reveal Mark's name after he died. Well, I'm not so sure Mark wanted that either. Mm-hmm. So I'm not so sure the source was protected here. I agree that source protection is a very good thing, and the irony of it is that source protection became a paramount value because of Deep Throat, and yet at the same time, ironically, as I talk in my book, he was not being protected.
Wow. Man, this is.
Does that make any sense to you?
well, yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, the fact you representing him is a big deal. And I see here you talk in your book about the real truth about the Watergate scandal. The real truth. I mean, now we hear a lot about Watergate today, but it's all kind of hoping that some sort of Watergate type scandal will undo the Trump administration, that sort of thing. But what do you think the real truth behind Watergate was?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt, Paul, that they caught Nixon covering up. They had a White House tape there, and he had an act of covering up there, and he probably also there's another one where he probably condoned hush money. So there's no doubt of his technical guilt. He's guilty, as was Bill Clinton, and others probably have done the same thing. But the question is, what was Watergate about? And did the press really, through the Washington Post, really convey the truth about it? If the truth were really known, the discussion about whether Nixon should be impeached, whether he should be removed from office, would be entirely different. And when we have a criminal trial, the accused always gets all the exculpatory and extenuated and mitigating evidence. And it's the thrust of my book that the public did not get it in this case. I think we see today, when we get reporting about the Russian collusion investigation and so forth, how important it is for the public to really be informed. The people who, understandably, really disliked President Trump and pinned all their hopes on this Russian collusion investigation. I mean, I do my own research, and I thought they were being badly misled by the press, and then disappointed when Mueller's report comes out and says there was never a shred of collusion evidence, really is what it really amounts to. And I feel bad for them because I think they're misled by the press. So I don't. All the facts did not come out, and the most glaring one being in Watergate was the involvement of the CIA. And had people known about that, it would have cast an entirely different light on Watergate.
Really? So now that's interesting too, because if you are following now this investigation of the original investigation, what sparked this Russia collusion narrative. Some people are thinking it was some sort of intelligence operation as well. So, I mean, that's an interesting parallel there.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. In the Russian collusion investigation, this was a setup from the beginning. One can tell that from the evidence. Like I say, I do my own research on these things, and that was very clear that it was really a setup, and the public was misled. For instance, just let me give you one example, Paul. When George Papadopoulos gets indicted for lying to the FBI about being contacted by Joseph Mifsud, and it was very technical lies about whether he was with the campaign when Mifsud talked to him. And I think probably, like everyone else, didn't want to be associated with the Russian meddling thing at all, so he denied it. He denied talking to Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos denied talking about Mifsud after he was on the campaign and named to the campaign. In fact, it was after he was named. And that's precisely why Mifsud approached him. But Mifsud was described in Mueller's indictment as being Russian-connected, and everybody's talking about Mifsud being Russian-connected and going to Russia and talking to Russian people. And everyone assumed that he was a Russian agent. I think James Comey just wrote an op-ed calling Mifsud a Russian agent. But anybody with a brain can go on the internet right now and see that Mifsud's one of his closest people, his closest colleagues, is a woman named Claire Smith, who's in charge of British intelligence vetting. In other words, she's the person who decides whether somebody's an agent or not. And he teaches classes with her. He's a close friend of hers. He's always been associated with British intelligence. It's very hard not to find that in, like they say, in about 5 or 10 minutes. But he's always been, so he was clearly a guy that was sent in there to talk to Papadopoulos. It didn't happen by chance that this guy comes in, and then he was told to do it at a dinner in Rome. He has not said by whom, but he was also told to bring one of his students, and the student was to pose as Vladimir Putin's niece. So this is has the smell of a setup from the get-go. And my real point here isn't that is not to talk about the setup by the intelligence agencies, but I'm more worried about the media reporting it well.
Oh my goodness!
Had the media reported this well, right from the beginning, people would have said, "Why hire Mueller? This is really silly."
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and as a matter of fact, of all people to hire a special prosecutor because of James Comey.
Mm-hmm.
Here's James Comey leading the setup along with John Brennan. And we're hiring a special prosecutor because Comey says, well, gee, he fired me, or the president fired me. He must be covering up this terrible Russian collusion investigation, and that's what it was about. So we have this weird situation where the president is being set up, and he's being investigated precisely because he was set up and perhaps smelled a rat. I'm not here to apologize for any rhetoric or any blundering that President Trump has done. Everyone knows he's sort of a bull in a china shop. But I think we went a bit far here by investigating a guy for treason for 2 years. I mean, that's really, really bad. And so I've written about that before. In June of 17, I wrote that this was not anything at all. I said this was the elite left version of a birther conspiracy. And unfortunately, and I thought the birther conspiracy was very innocent, and people were just asking questions. But yet everyone got offended that, how can you ask questions about President Obama? Now we've got someone actually accusing Trump of treason.
Yeah.
And we're bringing down the might of the government on him. And I wrote that in June of 17. I said, this is a silly investigation. I had done the research. I've looked on the Internet. Can a reporter do that? I mean, I work 10 hours a day.
Well, so let's come back to that. So they clearly have an agenda, and the title of your book, folks, if you're just joining us, we're talking with John O'Connor. He is a former assistant U.S. attorney from Northern California. His book is due out in November. It's called Postgate, and the subtitle, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. And that's what you're describing there when it comes to reporting on Russia collusion, sir, is this partisan advocacy journalism. They're leaving the relevant information, on the cutting room floor. And so back to what you said about how the Post failed to report the truth about Watergate, or some key details about Watergate, and you specifically mentioned the CIA. Go into that a little bit more.
Well, like I say, the way you tie them together is when people say John Dean testifies this is another Watergate. In fact, Paul, it is another Watergate, but not for the reasons stated. Let me just cast the scene at the burglary. There are 5 people that are arrested in the DNC headquarters. It's 4 Cubans who all were associated with the CIA's Bay of Pigs, one of which, Eugenio Martinez, was actually an active CIA agent on the payroll. Okay. Their supervisor on the job in the DNC was James McCord, who had just recently retired from the CIA and had been a supervisor on the Bay of Pigs. invasion, and then he and Howard Hunt also had started the second naval guerrilla operation, which was a plan to re-invade Cuba. Okay, now that's odd right there. One of the supervisors is Howard Hunt, who had just recently, quote, retired, unquote, retired from the CIA and had been doing all kinds of things from the White House that looked like they might involve the CIA. McCord was picked up at the jail when he made bail by a fellow named Pennington, who the CIA tried to hide from the investigators from Congress. They never gave him Pennington information. They lied to the FBI about the guy's identity. The FBI was searching for a guy named Pennington. Who's this Pennington? Well, the CIA lied, gave him the wrong Pennington. When the CIA finally found Cecil Pennington, Cecil Pennington says, I don't know what it says. I don't know what you're talking about. But the point is, McCord was picked up by his handler, his CIA handler, at the jail. And there are all kinds of indications that McCord was a CIA agent. Now, did this fellow retire from the CIA? And he was hired to be a security guard with the Republicans. Did he come over there to commit crimes? Of course not. He was a straight-laced guy. He's a devout Baptist. He came over there to do the CIA's work. He didn't come over to be a criminal. Howard Hunt had done all sorts of things. He had gotten the White House to approve him going into the Ellsberg psychiatrist's office and getting Ellsberg's records. Then the CIA lied to the White House and said they didn't get Ellsberg's records, and they clearly did get Ellsberg's records. That's established by one of the burglars and by Ellsberg's psychiatrist. Yes, they come through Ellsberg's records. So the CIA had these ongoing operations in which they were using the White House as dupes. The CIA could not legally operate in the United States under their charter. It was a felony for anybody to do it. However, if you had presidential authorization, then anything is okay under national security. So the White House wanted to infiltrate, or the CIA wanted to infiltrate the White House so that they could claim that the presidential authorization for the various things that they were doing. Then they would be legal. So you would get a tincture of legality if later on, 10 years down the line, some congressional committee found out that they were wiretapping a bunch of men talking to prostitutes. Then they could say, oh, look at this. We've had approval. The White House approved this.
Yeah.
Look at these receipts. Here, we bought the bugging material on a check from the DNC that had been laundered by Gordon Liddy. So that's what was going on. But the reporters knew it. They at least knew there was something like that. And they also knew that Hunt, for example, was working half-time for Mullen and Company, and that Mullen and Company had its CIA connection. Woodward talks in court about how the first time the burglars are arraigned, he sees this fancy-dressed fellow who gets very nervous when Woodward confronts him. Well, that's a guy that was working for Mullen and Company. Mm-hmm. He was a lawyer with Mullen and Company. Now, why would Mullen be sending in, and he was the fellow who hired the criminal defense lawyers. Why would Mullen be sending lawyers in when these burglars are arrested?
I mean, it seems like to me, John, we need to read the book. I mean, it seems like you have done an incredible job here.
Yeah, there's no way that in a few minutes I can tell you everything that is there. But let me tell you this. Everywhere you go, you say, wait a second. I mean, they didn't see this. They didn't find this. This didn't get reported. The reader would say, if I knew this, I would change my view of the entire scandal. Now, it should have been there's no doubt the White House should have been covered with some shame. But on the other hand, the higher-ups in the White House did not think of this, did not know about it, did not think of this as a campaign operation. This had nothing to do with the campaign. And so it would have been a three-ring circus, not a one-ring circus, and it would have been highly interesting and entertaining for sure. But I just don't think at the end of the day it would have been the same thing. So the lesson we get from this, Paul, is unfortunately some perverseness. Journalists are rock stars. They have political power. They can get rid of a president if they slant their reporting a certain way. How about that?
Yeah.
That's the real lesson we learned from Watergate. I was an assistant United States attorney at the time, and I thought, well, the lessons we've learned from Watergate is, boy, factual reporting combined with good sleuthing by the FBI, and we end up with this wonderful result, even if the result is not so great for our country. At least we're clean jeans, and the system works. And to a certain extent, it did. I mean, based on the evidence, people were convicted and so forth and so on. And in this case, the White House is technically guilty, and a lot of people committed crimes. But when you look at them, I look back at them, a lot of them were fairly rinky-dink. You know, they get George Steinbrenner for a political contribution and somebody else for doing this and that. So I'm not against any of the prosecutions. I'm just saying, as a member of the public, we certainly got fooled a bit here.
Yeah, there was a lot more. There was a lot more than just coming back on the White House. That it seems like what you're saying is that it's kind of the scapegoat, and the press just refused to report on the other tributaries that would have really exposed a much larger operation. And that seems to be what you're saying.
Yeah, and then it becomes a template for what's happening today and what has happened for the last 40 years or so.
Yeah.
The press knows that if they just start getting everyone excited about a certain theme, a certain narrative, and flood the zone with things about that narrative, that the public is, everybody's busy. They take the cues from the narrative. They trust the journalists. I mean, after all, they're getting Pulitzer Prizes, and they tell us how great they are every day. And but think about this. Everyone is held accountable. Businessmen, politicians, show business people, athletes. Everyone's accountable except for one institution, the media. Who watches the watchers? Who reports on the media? Nobody, because we expect the media to do that, and it's pretty much of a monolithic outfit.
Yeah.
There are a few people, squeaking here and there, but basically it's you don't get any blowback on the media, do you?
They're almost clergy. They're almost a level of clergy. I've called them news priests. They can absolve you or condemn you based on a rotating moral scale from one day to the next.
That's brilliant, because I think what we are is we're almost in theology today. You either believe a certain thing or you don't, and they are. They create a theology, and all events are to be fit into that theology, no matter what it is. If it's Duke lacrosse, we've got a narrative all set up, and those kids are getting shoved into that narrative. And yes, and they're not going to, and the media is going to condemn you there, just the same way the priests would do it in the old days. And that's what we face today. It's you can say the same thing about global warming or climate change.
Yeah.
If you dare be a skeptic, which used to be a good scientific attitude, now that's not good. You're a denier. So you might as well say, there are not three people in one God, or so forth and so on.
Yeah, you make a great point. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Mr. O'Connor. The book is Postgate. Folks, it's not out until November, but you can pre-order now over at Amazon.com. Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. His name is John O'Connor. John, thank you so much, sir, for spending time with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Paul, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, we'll do it again soon. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
And the fact of the matter is, he manufactures this product here in the United States. It's hurting U.S. workers here in the United States. I did have the opportunity to go to Hong Kong 2 years ago when I attended the CFA conference in Hong Kong, and I had probably 5 years ago I had been to China. And there is a world of difference between Hong Kong and China. Hong Kong is a very well-educated community. When I went out and met the people, they were very versed as far as what was going on in the world. All the streets in Hong Kong, because of the British, are in English. The kids are taught English in school. So it is a completely different culture, and I completely understand why the Hong Kong residents are protesting what's going on in their community, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah, it seems that they're already accustomed to a certain level of freedom of base.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes. Welcome back, man. Wasn't that a great interview? Man, I'm telling you, I learned a lot during that interview. Learned a lot. Also, some stuff I needed to go and really kind of do my homework afterwards. Surrounding Watergate, some fascinating stuff. Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry. Oh. Sorry, Jeff's handing me my cell phone that I left in the other room. Oh my goodness. All right. So anyway, really interesting stuff. We'll have that video up at conduitnews.com later today if that's something you want to share with your friends. Also, go to subscribe to the YouTube channel or go to the YouTube channel to subscribe to Conduit News so that you'll get a notification when the video's uploaded. And then you have it. You can watch it again, share it with your friends, whatever. Coming up on the program, next hour, the bottom of the hour, State Representative Rick Beck will be back with us. Always great to have him on the program. Also, we got a ton of news to get to on the Arkansas front. We got highway money. We got a candidate announcing for state senate, going to challenge a Democrat, going to try to make that chamber even more red than it already is. Also, Arkansas VA doctors been charged in the deaths of 3 patients. This doesn't happen very often. The attorney representing the victims says that it's much broader and that we don't need to just pin it all on the VA doctor for what he did. Also, going to talk a little bit more about casinos, but specifically not the casino in Pope County, although that's a mess, just from what I can tell. But the casino going in down in Jefferson County that's going in without a hitch. Like nobody's against it down there. We'll talk about what the Quapaws have to say about what they think about going into Jefferson County, as well as, their relationship with the local government there. Anyway, just stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We got one more hour of Conduit News coming your way next.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Human rights, and I think they're very worried. And, if you're somebody like Beijing that is in a trade, or China, mainland China, and you're in this trade war with the United States, and they look and they see these protests and they see them waving the American flag, this is a powder keg, isn't it?
It is. It's very much so, very much so. And everyone said, I'm going to put these trade tariffs. Trump said, I'm going to put these trade tariffs against China, and they're going to pay for it. And the fact that they've actually devalued their yuan, the fact we put a 10 or 15% tariff, when they devalue their yuan 10 or 15%, that in essence offsets the trade barrier. I think, we're at war. And my parents, my grandparents, went to war and they fought. And we had to tighten the belts back here in the United States. We're not going into a physical war with China. We're going into a trade war. And probably at worst, we're going to have a rise in inflation, maybe 1 or 2%. So when we go to Walmart or Target, things are going to cost a little bit more because of the things we import from China. But, I think it's a small cost to pay to stand up to China. I also attended the CFA conference this year in London, which is a group of portfolio managers from throughout the world, 65 different countries. And time, when they heard I was from Washington, D.C., they said, thank God Trump is standing up to China, because China's been bullying us, he's been bullying the United States, and thank God that Trump is doing this. Not only for the country, but also for the world.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So do you think that the president not instituting those tariffs is his attempt to maybe have a meeting with President? How do you say that? How do you say his name, Joe? Is it Xi? Chi? I can never remember, Clark. But do you think he's wanting to? You think he's wanting to set up a meeting? You think he did not institute the new tariffs because of Hong Kong? Is that what you believe?
I think it's politics, and what goes behind the scenes, I really don't know. And it seems like to me he's pushing on the gas sometimes, and he's pushing on the brakes at other times. But it's a Indy 500 race, and I think he's going around the track as fast as he can. And so I think you and I and the general public
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Here we go. Welcome. Hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. We've talked a little bit about the casinos in Pope County, or the casino, the different casino groups. So when I refer to them as plural, I'm talking about the different groups that are vying to try to go in, to the River Valley area. And we appreciate all of you listening in the River Valley. Now, I mean, we also have other casino, like you've got the expansions, obviously, at Oaklawn, and you've got the one in West Memphis, Southland and Oaklawn. They're expanding, right? Southland is going to be quite interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Southland Casino in West Memphis expands into a full-fledged casino hotel area. I mean, how many people are no longer going to make the drive to Tunica? How many people from Memphis, Tennessee, are going to cross the river and, and go to, it's going to be closer. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Now, of course, we know what comes with casinos, besides the tax revenue, right? Addiction, crime, that sort of thing. I mean, it is what it is. Now, in Jefferson County, in Pine Bluff, there's not really even a bidding process. They've just decided, from what I can tell, according to Dale Ellis, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, they're going with the Quapaws. The Quapaws are going to set up a casino in Jefferson County, in Pine Bluff. The mayor there, according to this piece, she wants it in the actual city. Apparently, the Quapaws, have given some data about how their Oklahoma casino affects Joplin, Missouri, right there on the border, but Joplin really just benefits from the tourism, doesn't actually get any tax revenue. She wants to make sure that the city of Pine Bluff going to get an estimated $10 million a year in revenue from the casino. Now, I don't know if that includes the supposed jobs that are supposed to be created. What's funny is in the first paragraph, the Gazette writes, the casino under construction in Jefferson County comes with the usual promise of well-paying jobs, additional tax revenue, and a boost in local tourism. I like that. The usual promise. It's less like, it's the usual promise, high-paying jobs, additional tax revenue, boost in tourism. Third paragraph, unlike Pope County, the road to a new casino in Pine Bluff has been relatively smooth, with only one gaming entity vying for Jefferson County's attention. So the Quapaws were it. Now, I'm not really sure why, but, I mean, that's open to speculation. Okay? It's open to speculation. Anybody see, well, I mean, there's different casinos going in places, I mean, it can be bad, right? Can we say that it can be bad? I mean, a lot of people have horror stories about what happened when the casinos went into places like Tunica, a poorer area, and it actually ended up making, some people say, actually making things worse. You know what I mean? Right? I mean, if you were to give, Paul, what's your worst image of a casino going into town? Well, it would have to be the skewed alternate reality in Back to the Future Part 2, when they go back to 1985 and Biff Tannen has created a casino. Now, many people believe that Biff Tannen is President Donald Trump. And the parallels there were actually pretty interesting if you think about it, considering Trump runs in 2016. Back to the Future Part 2 is set in 2015. Anyway, I digress. But let's get to this. What I think is so interesting about Polk County and Jefferson County and casinos is how the chairman, okay, let's see, the Quapaw Nation of Oklahoma was the only serious contender for attention of area leaders in Jefferson County. And while the offerings of Chairman John Berry, the elected leader of the Quapaw Nation, were more modest, both Berry and Pine Bluff Mayor Shirley Washington said efforts were made to ensure the process was not only transparent, but also that it did not cross any legal or ethical lines. The chairman of the Quapaw Nation saying, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking to U.S. attorneys about why or why not we might have cut a check to get a letter of support. That's interesting. Notice he says about why or why not. I don't want to spend my time talking to the U.S. attorney about why or why not we might have cut a check to get a letter of support. I don't have time for that. That's not what we're into. And that's the old way, the way things have been done. We're just not into doing it the old way. We're into the new way with a commitment to the people, to community, a commitment to people of color and other people of Jefferson County to have jobs and to have respect. Now, I find this an interesting statement. When you're a business going into town and you have to basically come out and say, hey, oh, by the way, we're not doing this the quid pro quo way. We're not doing this the crooked way. We're not doing this the illegal way. We're not doing this the ethically gray way. We're doing this up. Boy, what kind of industry are you representing when that's what you have to say? I mean, that's all should be assumed, but it's not assumed, is it? It's not assumed with the casinos. That alone should tell Polk County that we don't want anything to do with this. Has anybody been watching that show on the Paramount TV network called Yellowstone with Kevin Costner? It is absolutely fantastic. It is fantastic television. It really is. It's appointment television at this point. Now, I don't have cable, so I went and bought the seasons. There's season 1 and season 2 on Amazon, but season 2 is in the process of being released. It comes out every Wednesday on the Paramount Network. Yellowstone, it's Kevin Costner. It's in Montana. He owns like 200,000 acres of his family's ranch, and you have the Indian tribe, an Indian tribe that wants the land because it used to belong to their ancestors, and then you've got these other. Anyway, it's kind of like The Godfather in terms of, I mean, they'll just kill somebody, you know, like if you mess with them enough. It's kind of like The Godfather, but for cowboys. It's a pretty good television. Joe, you need to watch Yellowstone. I think you'll really enjoy it. Anyway, so I bought it on I bought it on Amazon, and so now, but of course we're paying that internet tax. Thanks a lot for that one, Arkansas. But then you've got season 2. So we have to wait till Thursday before it's actually the new episode is released on Amazon. That's frustrating, but anyway. But the whole thing, the plot is revolving right now over a casino and over the Native Americans, whatever. I can't remember which tribe it is. They want to build a casino. It's all anyway. Keep going here. In my mind, if it had not been for John Berry, this is from Shirley Washington, the mayor of Pine Bluff. If it had not been for John Berry and his team and their effort to move the gaming initiative forward, I don't think it would have happened. Some people thought that maybe I should have gone out to seek other tribes or other gaming organization. I did not do that because I knew that from day one we had been working with John Berry and the Quapaws, and I felt we owed them that due diligence because I knew where they had started from. Keep going here. A clean deal. Go to the sub-headline here, a clean deal. During the beginning phases, when Jefferson County was initially approached by Berry and his team about building a casino, Washington received a lot of advice from different people regarding what incentives she should try to get from the tribe in exchange for her support. Quote, when something like this is happening, a lot of stuff starts coming your way from all sources in the state, out of state, Pine Bluff people, Little Rock people, Hot Springs people, everywhere. So I'm not even that politician. I'm that school teacher person who's doing the best job I can to work in this position, but I'm serious about Pine Bluff, about doing the best I can for Pine Bluff, the mayor said. We wanted to do a clean deal, she said. We wanted to do it right. Now, this is interesting. We wanted to do a clean deal. Well, what kind of deal's going on up in Pope County? I mean, it may be clean, but you don't hear people talking about how we want to make sure this is a clean deal. Or at least I haven't seen any reporting on it. Instead, it's a lot more complicated. We wanted to do a clean deal, she said. We wanted to do it right. We didn't want to do anything that looked illegal or that looked like we were bribing them or they were bribing us or whatever. At the same time, Pine Bluff has a lot of deficits. There are a lot of things that we need, and I wanted some of those needs taken care of. Okay. The main thing I wanted to do, or the main thing I wanted to be sure of was that, number one, the casino was located in Pine Bluff, said the mayor, because if the casino was not located in Pine Bluff, that meant we didn't get those tax dollars. And let's see, get some more quotes from this story. I looked at areas where casinos are in town, and they do benefit considerably if they are in the city. They didn't have to locate in the city. They could have located just out in the county. So my thing was just guarantee me that the land you purchase, wherever it is, that it would be close enough to be annexed into the city limits. That was the one guarantee they made. Tax revenue for Pine Bluff once the casino is fully operated is estimated at $10 million. Again, another quote, I wanted to guarantee that there would be jobs, not just the custodial type or the domestic jobs, but some of the higher-end jobs for our people. We wanted to make sure someone identified those jobs and the training that would be required for people to do those jobs. Let's see, other concessions guaranteed by the Quapaw Nation, including construction and maintenance of a permanent substation on casino property for Pine Bluff Police, Fire, and Emergency Services, and a training curriculum to be offered through the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff and Southeast Arkansas College, a community college. Anyway, so down at Pine Bluff, they are really welcoming this. I mean, that's what it seems to me, that they really think this is the right decision and everything else. And, you know, it's kind of a tale of two cities. Think about it. All of us, everybody who doesn't live in Jefferson County, we all voted. I voted against the amendment. But those of us who voted for Amendment 100 to put casinos into our Constitution, specifically in Pope and Jefferson County, you know, all these people voted just the way, you know, that voted for it. Well, Jefferson County voted for it. But then you have Pope County, where Pope County voted against it, but yet the rest of us got to decide and basically overrule them and say, no, we're putting this in the Constitution. Pope County, you guys are now casino land. Fascinating situation if you stop and think about it. Now, other stories. By the way, let me know what you think there. Specifically, let me know what you think about the skewed tangent, the alternate version of 1985. Doug Thompson reporting that the VA, former VA doctor, has now been charged by U.S. Western District Attorney Dak Keese in the killing of 3 vets. He's a pathologist, charged in the deaths of 3 patients. They're saying he also committed fraud to hide his alcohol abuse. He falsified medical records. He gave false statements to investigators. Dr. Robert Morris Levy, 53, of Fayetteville, risked his own life to stay intoxicated on the job. Now, how did he risk his life? This is crazy to me. Aside from the fact that you have victims here being charged with manslaughter because of misdiagnosis. He's a pathologist. He misdiagnosis. He gave wrong advice, and it resulted in, you know, some other terrible things that he did to patients. But, you know, but these 3 were the worst because it resulted in their deaths after they reviewed the situation. Dr. Levy was making $225,000 a year at the VA clinic plus bonuses, and his job was to review laboratory test results on tissue samples to make diagnoses based on the findings, right? A pathologist. So, I mean, think about if you go to dermatologist, you got a mole or something you don't like, they cut it off, and, then you got to send it upstate or wherever they send those things. So this is happening at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and this is an absolute tragedy. These are our veterans. These are the people that, were willing to give their lives. They did give their lives in service to the country, not the last full, but they were willing to do the last full measure of devotion. They were willing to die for our freedoms. And then something like this happens. Matter of fact, we have some quotes here. Our veterans go to get help and not to be harmed, Dak Key said. Our thoughts are with the veterans and their families. Brian Smith, though, listen to this. Brian Smith of Memphis, who is an attorney representing several veterans who suffered from misdiagnoses by this Dr. Levy and their family members or survivors, said, quote, "We are continuing to look at what happened. They are trying to hang all of this on Dr. Levy, but we believe people at the medical center and above have responsibility. It's been a tough day for the veterans and their families who were involved in this," Smith said. Now, the guy apparently was an alcoholic, all right? And they caught this guy at one point, and they gave him 5 months off and said, hey, you need to get straight. And so this guy then decides, this Dr. Levy, he decides that he wants to still be, still get his buzz on, still be drunk, but he also has to find a way to pass the drug tests, which I believe at the VA, I don't know, I'm sure this is the way it is on a lot of hospitals, they want to make sure that you're not addicted to a substance. If you're a doctor, so you're kind of going to be tested, and especially if you've already been sent home because, you were drunk on the job, right? So Doug Thompson reports that the indictment released Tuesday says Levy was closely monitored, giving 42 random blood and urine tests after completing the substance abuse program, after he was, drunk at work and then he got to come back. So in order to keep being drunk, it says here that he intoxicated himself while evading the tests to see if he was drunk by using a highly toxic form of alcohol, to methyl, to butanol, according to the indictment. The substance doesn't show up on normal alcohol and drug screening. So, quote, being a pathologist, he was skilled in toxicology and had knowledge and the medical equipment to give himself exactly the right amount of this lethal, it could be a lethal dose of drugs. More than a tiny amount of the substance carefully measured for the individual taking it is fatal, Keith said. Keith declined to say how much Levy is believed to have taken in each dose, but it's a matter of drops. So you to take a few drops and, is that the thing that actually gets you high? Let's see, the 2-methyl, 2-butanol compound isn't produced for human consumption, Keith said. According to product listings on chemical company website, the substance is legal only for research and development. So the guy's basically getting high on this and evading the blood test. Levy had to submit blood and urine samples to both the Ozark system and to the Mississippi State Board of Medical Licensure, which issued his medical license. In all, he submitted his 42 blood or urine samples from November 11, 2016 to July 3, 2018. The averages are about 2 a month. None tested positive for drugs and alcohol. So here's a guy who was essentially, determined to keep doing what he was doing, and now he's been charged again with the deaths of 3 of our veterans. Unbelievable. I would not want to be this guy, considering how we think, especially people in Arkansas, how we think about our veterans. I think they're probably going to throw the book at this guy. We're going to take a break. Let me hear what you think on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Just don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I think he's trying to get them to come back to the table, one way or another, and they need to come back to the table, probably even more so than we need to come back to the table with them.
Yeah, and this is what I'm wondering, because I guess probably 2-3 weeks ago, you started to see the headlines that said, China's done. They're not going to negotiate anymore on trade. They're just going to hope that Donald Trump loses, and they're going to do everything they can to help the Democrats, and, they want to work with another administration. That's a pretty big gamble for them, though, because if the president pulls out a victory, that's going to be even worse for China, you would imagine. And can they wait until, 2021, January 2021, to do things differently? I mean, that's another question. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think China will come back before the 2020 elections and actually get a trade deal with the United States?
Well,
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yeah, Skip saying Yellowstone is awesome. Great show. Also, were they paid in poker chips? Hey, that's a good question. Maybe we want to make sure that everything's done above board in the Jefferson County, but we do want to play for free, or we do want, we want you to spot us a little bit. Who knows? Gene writing, I wonder how many merit pay raises the VA doctor received while killing veterans. That's a good question. That's a very good question. Let's see here. What else do we have? Will Arkansas politicians launder their ill-gotten bribes in Arkansas casinos or the Cayman Islands? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Some people out there think there's Chinese money floating around because, the Chinese, when they go into any other country, to take their resources or use their resources, they always find the politicians first, and they know which ones, they can give money to. They grease them. Why would we think they're treating America or Arkansas any different? Well, if you think that we're somehow not doing that, well, ignore the current corruption scandals we have, but also just have fun sleeping in a nice warm bed of naivete, as they say. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
I mean, their economy is slowing down much more. On the opposite side of the coin, our economy is very strong, and I think, I think a waiting game hurts them more so than hurts the United States. And to be quite frank with you, the day before President Trump was elected, I would have put my money that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And so I think to predict that far out is crazy. So I think, as I said, I think time is in our favor versus their favor, whoever takes political office next.
So can I ask you a personal question? You say you're in Washington, D.C., and you support the president. What does that town feel like? I'm sure you have people around you that that also support the president, but I would imagine that the town, the swamp, if you will,
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. Hour number 2, we got about a half hour in the program left. We got your meme of the day coming up next. It's a pretty funny one. It centers around global warming, so that'll be fun. Right now we're in the everybody believes in global warming now because it's so hot, and then when it's going to be deathly cold, it's like nobody believes in global. I don't. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? There's always those people. Anyway. Welcome back to the program. We've got State Representative Rick Beck on the line. He's from District 65. Rick, how are you, sir?
Fine. Good to talk to you this morning, Paul.
Man, it's good to talk to you, as always. So how are things going in this interim, where there's no session going on? Are you making it okay?
Yeah. It's nice to have a bit of a break, although I don't know that people fully understand that we do meet in committees and getting things together. And yesterday, we were working on some with the Education Committee related to the funding, the foundation funding for our education system.
Really? Well, so how's that how's that going? Are there people considering making changes?
Yes. First of all, your viewers or your listeners may be interested in hearing that education, K through 12 education, is about $3 billion of the general revenue expenditures, which is over 40% of the general revenue that actually goes towards education. The legislators are challenged with coming up with what is an adequate education. And then once we determine what an adequate education is as far as categories of education and so on and so forth, then by law we are mandated to fund it. You might have heard people say that, this is going to take away from education or whatever, and that's just not a true case, because education is funded first. So education is never shorted because of funding of something else. Wow. But anyway, one of the things that we're trying to work on right now is what's called the matrix. There's a portion of the education funding that's called the foundation funding, and this is the amount that's given to each one of the school districts. Now, foundation funding is based upon really head count, so the number of students you have times the foundation funding amount equals the amount of disbursement you're going to get from the state. Now, foundation funding is only a portion. It represents about 60 to 70% of the funding that a school district would get. The way we determine foundation funding, the amount of the foundation funding, is we use what's called a matrix, and that's what we're working on right now, to try to maybe adjust the matrix to try to find out whether or not to get this thing up to date. We really haven't updated it in the last 16 years or so. So what the matrix is it's a component by component matrix of what it takes for education, including salaries for teachers, nurses, principals, technology, books, and so on and so forth. So everything is put into the matrix, and then once we determine all of those components, we then come up with this foundation funding, which is a amount that we pay per student. Last year, that amount was $6,781 per student. Now, that's the very basic, like I said, foundation minimum you would get. Most schools would get quite a bit more than that per student.
Yeah.
Probably more. Arkansas's average, I believe, is somewhere around about $8,500 after we put other adders. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to look at the matrix and say, okay, what items might want to pull out of the matrix that are no longer relevant, and what items do we need to put into the matrix? This will allow us to better fund schools. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily more, not necessarily less, but better align our actual expenditures with what the schools are actually doing.
So you're saying once you figure out, essentially, like this is a part of a process to figure out what the state considers, or what you guys, representatives of the people, what you guys consider to be an adequate education. And then after you decide whatever that definition is, whatever the parameters of that look like, then it has to be funded.
Yes. Wow. And we've done a good job of that. It's interesting. One of the things that the matrix, going back to the matrix, and one of the tweaks I think that we have to come up with based upon the expenditures of the school districts. It's interesting to know that we do not give up local control. Once we determine what this foundation funding is, then that amount of money, if you can envision, is basically just pushed through a pipe. And at the other end of that pipe is your local school board and your superintendent. Just because we allocated money for one component in the matrix does not mean that money has to be spent on that component. That's up to local control, which is your school board and your superintendent.
Yeah.
So some interesting things is on the foundation funding, approximately about $4,700 of that goes to teacher salaries. So out of the $6,700 of the foundation funding, about $4,700 of that actually goes to salaries for teachers.
Interesting. We're talking with State Representative Rick Beck from District 65. Remind everybody where District 65 is again, Rick.
District 65 is pretty much all of Conway County and part of Perry County. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump back into the matrix here for just a second. One of the things that we've determined in the matrix is that in the matrix, as it stands right now, the number of personnel to students, there are 14 students for every one personnel. That's just the way it works out in the matrix as it is now. But if you actually look at your school districts, your listeners may be surprised to find out that it's much lower than that. In some cases, it's down as much as to 6. 6 to 1. So 6 students to every one person working at that school. Now that includes bus drivers and things like that. So we have to consider that. But those numbers are much lower, and as they are, it really messes up the foundation funding, because when we're funding at a ratio of 14 students to 1 salary. So that's one of the things that we'll be looking real close at.
Interesting. And so you think it could be more efficient if you kind of adjust that?
I think I think that's exactly what I'm hoping to get out of this. I'm hoping that by adjusting the matrix, we can actually truly align the matrix with what the schools are spending it on, and then let's take a look at those individual components. Right? Is there something there that we're doing? Maybe it's something that the state's requiring a school district to do that really doesn't amount to much, and it's not worth what the old saying, the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that. So maybe we would eliminate that requirement off the school district in the hopes of gaining some efficiency out in the districts themselves.
Yeah. Can you give us a little update in your neck of the woods? I mean, how did the flooding affect y'all's area when we had those terrible flooding in the spring?
Well, we were. It was very close. We did very well. We had a problem with one of the levees. It was an old pipe that had been run under the levee years and years ago. Actually, as a matter of fact, we had a hard time finding out exactly what the size of the pipe was, and it gave us some leakage problems. But we were able to actually build it, if you were to build a dam on the back side of the levee to contain that water right there, so to prevent flooding. So that was a great effort by the locals here in my district. The other thing that happened is actually happened when the waters were receding. We had a levee district that held up very well. The levee did exactly what it was supposed to do, and I can tell you it's pretty frightening when you're standing on top of that levee and you're looking at a foot or so, and the water's coming over top, and this thing is holding, and but the levees held. But actually, when the waters receded, because of the amount of water, we actually suffered some damage from one of the levees. Now, it never gave in, but it's going to be some extensive repair on that levee.
So talk a little bit about that, because there are, we have the governor and other legislators, who are on looking into this. Legislators appointed to, I guess a study group. Then you also have potential federal dollars that'll come in. You would assume, to try to help some of these, to try to help repair some of these levees, or maybe even make them stronger so this doesn't happen again.
Well, I think that's there are a lot of components out there that we have to look at. I think we will certainly get a lot of federal dollars, or get federal dollars. The amount I do not know, but to repair the levees, to get them back up to where they're supposed to be. But the other thing that this flood has done, it's like the old roof thing, right? No one cares about the roof until it rains, right? But this flood has shown us that maybe we got to take a closer look at some of the maintenance of our levees. So I think that's the task force that you're talking about. I think that's one of the things they're going to be challenged with, is looking at the maintenance side, the ongoing maintenance. After we get these things back up into shape, how are we going to maintain them? Where's that funding going to come from? Is it going to be a local tax on the protected lands for the levees? Is it going to be state funded? What's that going to look like? It'll probably, my guess is it'll probably be a mixture of both. It'll be local funding by those areas protected by the levees, and then the other part of it would be that we get some from the state. And that's the task force to determine exactly how that's going to work out.
Is there a lot of animosity with the folks in your district and surrounding districts that either almost got wiped out or did get wiped out by the the people upriver? I think the Army Corps of Engineers took a lot of heat for releasing the water when they did. In what was that, Oklahoma?
Yes, and that's one thing that I would like to talk a little bit about, actually. One of the things that happened is, people say, well, Oklahoma released this water on us and it cost us money. It's worth noting that this situation was such that there were heavy rains up in that area. The reservoirs up there were full. They were already in a mode in Oklahoma. It's interesting to know that in Oklahoma, when their reservoirs get full, what they start to do is they start to release water. They actually gauge the amount of water that they release off of the flow of the river at Fort Smith. And they try to set that up to 573 million cubic feet per second, and which is what the river can hold. As far as normally, the normal flow of the river is around 60,000 cubic feet per second. But so they take it up to that high level, which is a manageable level, to try to get their reservoirs empty. And they were actually in that mode doing that when they just had a catastrophic rain in that area. And they really had no choice but to let the water come down the river.
Wow.
I've heard a lot of people saying that, they release the water on us. It's like, this was an event that, Now, I will say this. We have had some meetings, and we're looking at, let's take a look. Maybe they should have gone into this release mode a little bit earlier, and that had a little bit more room in the reservoirs and things. But if you really look at the numbers, it just looks like that was it was a very tough event. Weather event. So we're looking at how we can possibly do that to make it actually work better in the future. Maybe there's some procedural type things that we can do, and possibly maybe there is some reservoirs or something like that we can take a look at.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, you don't really get these types of conflicts between states very often, or at least, I can't remember. I'm sure it's happened before, but it's one of those situations. It's like you kind of say it's a catch-22, and obviously the folks up in Oklahoma, they don't want to get flooded, so they'll just, it's just kind of one of those things. And you also kind of wonder, would Oklahoma, of course I know it was the Army Corps of Engineers, so I don't know, but would the federal government need to pay for some of these repairs, or is Oklahoma responsible, or, these are all questions that I hear people asking.
If you go back to the history of the levees, who built the levees, why they were built, and it's a pretty interesting. The levees started out with farmers basically building levees to protect their land by the river. And it expanded, and then the Corps came in and built levees. And then for a period there, the Corps actually maintained the levees. And then at one point, we wanted local control over the levees. So the Corps gave us local controls, and with these levee boards, they mandated that we set up what's called levee boards, or individuals that maintain the maintenance. They also have the ability to assess taxes against individuals that are protected by the levees to keep those levees in shape. And what happened is, for the most part, most levee boards did exactly what they were supposed to do. There were some that did not. And those are some weak parts of our levee that we got to take care of. One of the things that we're looking at here in Conway County, which I think is going to be a good thing in the long run, is we're looking at maybe reducing the number of levee boards, making the area larger for the levees. As far as, instead of having 6 levee boards, let's just have 1 or maybe 2 levee boards that comprise of a larger group, so that we can more continuity there, because quite honestly, if you have 8 levee districts and 7 of them are in great shape and one of them's not, the other 7 really don't matter, do they?
Yeah.
Because the one is going to, and so that's the type thing that we're looking at doing. I think that task force is going to look at that too. Is what's the best way to do that? We actually have, if you think about this, we actually have levees. Boards, a levee, a single continuous levee that might have as many as 7 levee boards for the different sections of it. And I think that if you're a continuous levee section, there should be 1 board for that, and for the full levee.
Yeah. Hey,
now another issue that's very interesting that I have heard some concerns with farmers is this. A lot of individuals farm between the levees and the river. Right now, those are unprotected areas, obviously, and there's some issues there with farmers saying, we can't get crop insurance. We're unprotected. So how do you handle that? Quite honestly, you chose to farm between the levees and the river, so there's obviously an accelerated risk there. But at the same time, the farmers do feed us. So we have to figure out how exactly we're going to handle that. And that's a major issue.
That's a good point, too. That's a good point.
There's some fields that there's 6 feet of sand, 4 feet of sand on top of what was once a row crop field. Those fields may never, ever be returned back to production because hauling 6 foot of sand off of a 40-acre field is a pretty big task.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Rick, I appreciate you coming on. I got one last question for you. So when you're seated in the Arkansas House of Representatives, I believe you sit between State Representative Dan Sullivan and John Payton, and you're 1 seat away from Josh Miller. How do you stand it?
Well, we kind of sit back there, and I don't know. It's a great group. We're back there on the back row. I don't know what that means either, but it's just a great group of people. And I tell you what, I do listen and take to their advice quite a bit back there. And they're a lot of fun to have as what we call seatmates, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, I appreciate it, sir. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
You bet. Anytime, Paul. Just give me a call.
All righty. Yes, sir. Rick Beck, everybody, State Representative, District 65. We're going to take a break. Going to be right back with your meme of the day.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
They don't take too kindly to the president and some of his policies.
I think quite frankly, the business leaders in general, they appreciate kind of what he's doing on a macro basis. I think, a lot of people get very frustrated with the tweets, commenting, who won the Kentucky Derby or not won the Kentucky Derby. I think that's frustrating. I think that's frustrating for the country moving forward. But when you look at kind of these strategic, economic initiatives, I think in general, at the end of the day, people kind of appreciate what he's doing. And it's when you have a discussion about that, more people will agree with you than disagree with you.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I mean, I think a lot of Americans.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Play the trap set. All right, welcome back. This headline here, Panel back $73.8 million for highway repairs. State fund transfers faces no hurdles. 5.7 for broadband, also approved. $73.8 million transfer of state funds to expedite flood damage repairs for Arkansas highways from the flooding we were just talking about. Described as by Michael Wickline, it zipped through a legislative panel on Tuesday. $30 million of the one-time state funds will go to repair flood damage, according to the Department of Transportation. Also, the subcommittee approved a Hutchinson request to shift $5.7 million out of the state's restricted reserve fund, to the Arkansas Economic Development Commission to provide startup funding for a new grant program, a high-speed restricted reserve fund. You know, it's got a really good name, but the restrictions really just, I guess, all you need is a rubber stamp, and you can move the money around. Titles are cheap. Obviously, this all comes on the heels of the fact that we're all facing a tax increase. I don't know, Joe. What we're facing a tax increase. It seems like October 1st. Yeah, that's right, folks. Tax increase is coming October the 1st. Let's see here. How many days, actually? We got a Google search. Google search this. Throw this up on the screen real quick. How many days until tax increase happens? 41 days. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. That's the sound of, like, you should feel better, your roads. It's like a smooth, nice day, driving in the sunset. Arkansas roads, you're going to pay higher taxes. 3 cents and 6 cents for diesel at the pump in only 41 days, ladies and gentlemen. How many days till October 1st? That's right. Yeah. They fixed the problem. The problem's over. They won't ever have to raise our taxes for roads again. They've solved. Oh, wait. There's a thing on the ballot in 2020 to raise them even more. 41 days from today, you'll be driving on better roads because of higher taxes. That's right. Here's your meme of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you being with us. We're going to post this meme of the day up at Conduit News, the Twitter page, as well as Facebook.com/Conduit News. And meme of the day. Where is the meme of the day? Hang on. We're running out of time. And here it is. Push the graphic. Captain_Rogers. Okay, Captain.Rogers.roasters_memes. The courtesy of this guy on Instagram. It's essentially a picture of Willy Wonka, where a friend says, global warming is an imminent threat. And then a picture of Willy Wonka that just is, in a world of pure imagination, do-do-do. Yeah, this is a pretty good one, actually. It's one of those, memes where it's friend, global warming as an imminent threat. Me. You're living in a world. Pure imagination. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. Folks, thanks so much for being with us, and we will see you tomorrow for our Thursday broadcast. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Get all of this information up at conduitnews.com. As well as, oh, by the way, we have a story up at conduitnews.com about the student loan crisis. If you got a debt crisis, like if you got a student loan like story, we want to hear about it. Check out conduitnews.com and share your story. There's an email address up there. We also linked to a Tucker Carlson interview, or Tucker Carlson segment from back in March that was really profound. So there's a lot of debt. And they're saying it's the next big crisis, because, if you take a bankruptcy, you still have to pay back your student loans. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Arkansas, be safe.